My wife secretly sold our family home for $350, $0 to her boss's nephew while I was away, then filed for divorce claiming I abandoned her. Now she's demanding half of a property I never knew she sold. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing a story about how my wife, Lisa, completely tore my life apart. Honestly, I always believed we had a solid marriage. We had our ups and downs, sure, but nothing prepared me for what I found out, something so shocking that it still feels surreal. The craziest part, it all started with a few subtle signs that I brushed off at first, things I thought were just normal stress or her being busy with work. But looking back now, they were red flags I should have paid closer attention to. It all began about 6 months ago. Lisa started working late more often, claiming she had to finish some project or meet with clients. I didn't think much of it at first. She's always been ambitious, always pushing for that promotion, that new deal. She's the kind of woman who's always on the go. But gradually, her excuses became thinner, and her phone became her constant companion. She'd hide it when I entered the room, and I noticed her deleting messages more frequently. Little things, but enough to make me uneasy. Then came the thing. One evening, I was sitting in the living room scrolling through my emails when I noticed a strange receipt on Lisa's phone. It was for a property, something I'd never seen before. It was a sale. Family home sold for $350, $0. My stomach dropped. I didn't even know she was involved in selling the house. I thought we owned that place together, and I certainly thought she was loyal to us. I confronted her about it, and she brushed it off, saying it was a mistake, that she was just looking into some investment property, nothing important. But her tone was defensive, and she avoided giving me details. Over the next few weeks, I kept noticing small inconsistencies. She'd leave her phone lying around more often, and I'd catch her in little lies. She claimed she was working late, but I'd see her sneaking around the house at odd hours, texting someone. I even noticed her deleting her messages in the middle of the night, things she'd never done before. I was starting to feel like I was losing grip on reality. Something was definitely wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Then one Saturday, I decided to do some digging. I installed a tracking app on her phone. I know, probably wrong, but I was desperate. That's when I saw the biggest shock of all. She'd been meeting someone, her boss's nephew, a guy named. They'd been seeing each other behind my back for months, not just sneaking around, but actually having sex. I found texts, pictures, plans to meet up. It all hit me like a freight train. My wife, the woman I loved, was cheating on me with a kid she'd met through work. That's when I realized I'd been blind, and everything I thought I knew about her was a lie. The betrayal was worse than I expected. It wasn't just about the cheating, it was the money. I found out she secretly sold our house to his uncle for a fraction of its worth, $350, a number I later confirmed was a steal. She did it while I was away on a business trip without telling me, and then she claimed I abandoned her. She filed for divorce, saying I was no longer interested in the marriage. All the while, she was living a double life, cheating, lying, and making a quick buck off our home. I couldn't believe I'd been so naive. How could she do this to me? How could she lie so effortlessly? That's when I knew I had to get revenge, but I also had to figure out what to do next. After I uncovered everything, I felt like I was in some kind of nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The initial shock was overwhelming. My wife, Lisa, who I thought was my partner, was cheating on me with her boss's nephew, and she had secretly sold our family home while I was away on a business trip. The worst part, she lied so convincingly, told me I'd abandoned her, and then filed for divorce. It was like she wanted to erase every trace of what we had, and I was left with nothing but a shattered trust and a mountain of questions. I remember sitting in the dark that night, staring at my phone, trying to process everything. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs. Did I really know her at all? How could she betray me like this? The anger started to boil in my chest, but underneath that there was a deep, aching sadness. I had loved her. I had built a life with her. And now it all felt like a lie. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and completely broken inside. The next morning, I decided I couldn't just sit around and stew. I had to act. I needed proof, concrete proof, to confront her properly and to figure out how deep this rabbit hole went. I started digging into the sale of the house. I found out that she'd sold it without my knowledge to her boss's nephew for just $350, $0. I knew that house was worth way more, probably double that, maybe more. She had made a quick, dirty deal, probably thinking I'd never find out. That move alone made my blood boil. How could she do this? She had no regard for what we built, what we owned, or the fact that I was completely blind to her lies. I also started to piece together her timeline. She'd been sneaking around for months. I found receipts of her meetings, late-night texts, and her phone records showed calls with at strange hours. She'd even lied about her whereabouts, claiming she was working late when she was actually with him. It all made me sick. I felt like a fool. I'd been so trusting, so naive. How could I have missed the signs? How could I have been so blind? I knew I had to confront her. I waited until she came home that evening, trying to stay calm, though inside I was raging. When she walked through the door, I looked her straight in the eyes and asked her about the house sale, about everything. Her face went pale for a second, then she started lying again. She told me she had no idea what I was talking about, that I was paranoid, that I was accusing her of things she didn't do. She said she was just trying to make a better life for us, that the sale was a mistake, and that was just a friend. She looked me dead in the eye and told me I was overreacting. That's when I saw her true colors. She was so bitchy, so dismissive. She called me paranoid, said I was jealous, and accused me of not trusting her. She even tried to turn it around, saying I was the one cheating or doing shady stuff. I was furious. I told her she was full of shit, that I'd found the receipts, the texts, everything. And that's when she started to panic. She begged me not to ruin her career, her reputation. She insisted she loved me, that she'd never cheat, but her lies fell apart. I knew she was lying. She'd been caught dead to rights. The emotional impact hit me hard. I felt betrayed on every level. How could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly? The woman I loved was a liar, a thief, and a cheat. I felt a mix of rage and heartbreak. I could see the guilt in her eyes, but she masked it with bitchy defiance, acting like the victim. I wanted to scream, to break something, but instead I just stood there, trying to keep my composure. I knew then that I couldn't trust her anymore, and I also knew I had to come up with a plan, something to make her pay for what she'd done. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. She thought she had pulled a fast one, that she could cheat, lie, and sell our home without consequences, but I was done playing nice. She was going to regret this. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I knew I had to make her see that her actions had consequences. I had to take back control of my life, my money, and my dignity. That's what I decided. I was going to make her pay. I just didn't know how yet, but I was determined to find out. After confronting Lisa that night, I felt a strange mix of relief and rage. She continued to deny everything, but her words sounded hollow, like she was just trying to cling to some shred of her lies. I knew she was hiding something bigger, something I hadn't uncovered yet. The house sale, the affair with, all of it pointed to one thing. Lisa was a master manipulator, and I was her latest target. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I had to come up with a plan, a way to hit her where it hurt, and set things straight. The first step was to gather all the evidence I could. I went through her phone, her email, her bank accounts, whatever I could access without her knowing. I wanted proof, concrete proof, that I could use against her if things escalated. I found bank transfers from her too, receipts of the house sale, even some shady emails from her boss's nephew talking about the deal. It was all there, laid out in black and white. The more I looked, the more my blood boiled. She had been planning this for months, lying to my face the entire time. Meanwhile, I also started talking to a lawyer. I wanted to understand my rights, especially about the house. I knew she had sold it secretly, but I had no idea if I even had a say in it. The lawyer told me that since we were married, I had some claim to the property, even if she sold it without my knowledge. But that wasn't the main issue. The main issue was her deception. I decided I'd use that as leverage. If she thought I was going to fight her legally, she'd be more likely to come clean. I also contacted a private investigator, just to get a clearer picture of what Lisa was really up to when I wasn't around. I needed to know if she was seeing behind my back all the time or just occasionally. Over the next few days, I played it cool, acting like I didn't know everything. I wanted her to think I was naive, that I was still trying to save the marriage. But inside, I was planning my move. I knew I had to hit her where it hurt: her pride, her money, her reputation. I started dropping hints that I was onto her, hinting that I had proof of her betrayal, that I wasn't going to let her walk away without consequences. She got nervous, started accusing me of spying on her, of invading her privacy. That was exactly what I wanted. I wanted her to feel cornered, like her world was crumbling. One night, I staged a scene. I pretended to be calm and collected, but I let slip that I knew about the house sale, about everything. Her reaction was priceless. She froze, then started yelling, calling me paranoid, accusing me of snooping and stalking. She said I was crazy for even suspecting her. But I kept pushing, telling her I had all the evidence and that I was done playing games. That's when she snapped, calling me a jealous, insecure loser. That's when I saw her true face: bitchy, manipulative, and utterly selfish. At that moment, I realized I couldn't trust her anymore. She had lied so much, betrayed me so deeply, that I knew I had to make some serious decisions. I couldn't stay married to someone who thought she could just buy her way out of everything, sell our home, cheat on me, and then pretend none of it mattered. I was done. I decided I'd fight for my rights, for the house, and for my dignity. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me. The plan was to hold her accountable, to make her regret ever crossing me. But I also knew I had to be smart about it. If I played my cards right, I could turn this whole nightmare around and come out on top. Over the next week, I intensified my efforts. I knew that if I was going to get any real justice, I needed to act quickly and decisively. I met with my lawyer again and we laid out a plan. First, I had to establish that I had a stake in the property and that her sale was illegal because she hadn't informed me or gotten my consent. That alone could be enough to challenge the sale in court, especially since I had proof of her deception. But I also wanted to hit her where it hurt emotionally, to make her realize that she couldn't just lie, cheat, and manipulate her way out of this. I decided to confront her again, but this time with my evidence laid out plainly. I arranged to meet her at our house, giving her the impression that I was still trying to salvage the marriage. When she arrived, I pulled out the bank receipts, the emails, and the texts I had collected. I let her see everything: her secret dealings, her affair with the house sale, all laid out in black and white. Her reaction was a mixture of anger, panic, and denial. She started yelling, calling me a stalker, a psycho, and accusing me of trying to ruin her life. She said she did everything for us, that she was just trying to build a future. I told her that her version of the future was built on lies and that I had enough evidence to expose her. Her bitchy attitude only intensified as she realized I wasn't backing down. She started crying, then yelling some more, trying to turn the tables and make me feel guilty. I didn't buy her crocodile tears. I knew she was just trying to manipulate the situation. I told her that I was done being played for a fool and that I was going to take legal action. I said I'd fight her for the house, for the money, and for her to be held accountable for her lies. That's when she threatened me, saying I'd regret messing with her, that she'd ruin me professionally and personally if I went too far. But I already knew I had the upper hand. I had the evidence and I was ready to use it. The emotional toll was immense. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. But at the same time, I started feeling a strange sense of clarity. I realized that I was better off without her, that her manipulations and lies had only hurt us both. I knew I had to do what was necessary to protect myself and my future. I couldn't let her get away with this, not after everything she'd done. The plan was to fight her in court, to make sure she paid for her betrayal and to reclaim what was mine. I was angry enough to do whatever it took. That night, I sat alone in the house, feeling a strange mixture of relief and dread. I knew the fight wasn't over yet, but I also knew I had started to turn the tide. The next step was to file the legal papers, challenging her claim of abandonment, fighting for the house, and exposing her affair in the process. I didn't know exactly how it would all play out, but I was determined. No matter what, I was going to make her see that she couldn't cheat, lie, and sell our home behind my back without consequences. This wasn't just about money or the house anymore. It was about respect, dignity, and justice. And I was finally ready to claim mine. The legal process moved quickly once I handed everything over to my lawyer. I knew she'd try to drag things out, maybe throw more accusations or even threaten me further, but I was prepared. I filed the challenge to the house sale, asserting that she had acted without my knowledge or consent and that the sale was invalid. I also filed for full custody of any remaining assets and demanded she pay back the money she'd stolen from us, her secret profit from selling the house. I knew, deep down, this was about more than just property. It was about standing up to her lies and manipulation. Meanwhile, Lisa's attitude shifted from defiance to outright panic. She started to realize that I wasn't backing down, that I had enough evidence to destroy her case. She tried to spin her lies, telling friends she was the victim, that I was crazy for accusing her of everything. But I could see the cracks in her facade. She was frantic, calling her lawyer, trying to negotiate some sort of settlement, but I wasn't interested in settling. Not after everything she'd done. One day she came home unexpectedly furious. She accused me of ruining her reputation, of trying to destroy her career, all because I was jealous and possessive. She called me a controlling bastard and said I was just a jealous loser who couldn't handle her success. I was tired of her bitchy attitude, tired of her lies. I just looked at her and said, "You lied to me for months. You sold our house behind my back, cheated on me, and now you're trying to pretend you're the victim. Sorry, Lisa, I've had enough. I'm taking everything back and I'm exposing you for what you really are." That's when she lost it. She screamed, threw things, and accused me of ruining her life. But I stayed calm. I knew I had the upper hand. I had the evidence and I was ready to fight her in court. I also contacted the private investigator I'd hired, who confirmed that Lisa had been seeing regularly, sometimes even during the time she claimed she was working late. It was clear she'd been lying about everything, her reasons, her alibis, her entire story. That was the final nail in the coffin. The emotional toll was heavy, but I felt a strange sense of clarity. I realized I had been a fool to trust her so blindly. I had given her everything, my love, my home, my future, and she had thrown it all away for a quick affair and some money. I was angry, but I was also determined. I knew the truth now, and I was going to make her pay for it. The court hearings loomed, and I was ready to fight for what was rightfully mine. I wasn't just after the house, I was after justice. I wanted her to see that she couldn't lie her way out of this, that her manipulations had consequences. In the end, I learned a lot from this nightmare. Trust is fragile, and sometimes, the people closest to you can turn out to be your biggest enemies. But I also learned that standing up for yourself, even when it's hard, is the only way to truly move forward. Lisa thought she could cheat her way out of everything, but she underestimated my resolve. This isn't just about revenge. It's about reclaiming my life and making sure she never does this to anyone else again. And honestly, that feels like a small victory in the chaos she created. The court date finally arrived, and I was ready. All my evidence laid out on the table, proof of her secret. Sale of our house, the affair with, the money she had stolen, and her lies. I had spent sleepless nights preparing, and now I was determined to see this through. Lisa looked nervous, her bitchy facade cracked just enough for me to see her genuine fear. She thought she could manipulate her way out of everything, but this time it was different. I had the law and I had the truth on my side. The hearing was intense. Lisa tried to spin her lies, claiming she had done everything for us, that I was controlling, and that she'd only sold the house to improve our lives. But her words rang hollow. The judge saw through her, especially once I presented the evidence: texts, bank transfers, the sale documents, and witness statements from the private investigator. When the judge looked at her and asked why she hadn't told me about the sale, or Lisa's bitchy attitude turned into outright panic. She stammered, trying to come up with excuses, but it was too late. In the end, the court ruled in my favor. The sale of the house was declared invalid because she had acted without my consent, and I was awarded full ownership. The judge also ordered her to pay back the money she had stolen from us, plus damages for emotional distress. Lisa's face twisted in anger and frustration as I watched her realize she had lost everything she thought she could manipulate. Her bitchy attitude had crumbled completely. She looked defeated, like a queen brought down by her own lies. After the court ruling, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I had fought for what was rightfully mine, and I had won. But the betrayal still stung deep. I knew I'd never trust Lisa again, and I had no desire to rebuild what was lost. I decided to move on, to start fresh, leaving behind the chaos she had created. I sold the house she sold behind my back, took the money, and used it to invest in a new place, something I could call my own, free from her lies and manipulation. Looking back, I realize how much I've learned. Trust is fragile, and sometimes the people closest to you will betray you in ways you never imagined. But standing up for yourself is the only way to reclaim your dignity. Lisa thought she could cheat her way out of everything, but she underestimated my resolve. I've come out of this stronger, wiser, and more cautious. I don't regret fighting for my rights, because if I hadn't, I'd still be living in her shadow, believing her lies. Now I'm finally free, and that's the best revenge I could have asked for.